Good morning again. Not everyone gets a sabbatical. I was lucky, blessed, and privileged to have one. The definition of sabbatical is related to Sabbath, which is a day of religious observance and abstinence from work, to allow one to let one's focus be on God and the holy, and to let oneself renew. It is also based on the agricultural practices of allowing fields a time to lay fallow. The fields were plowed but left unsown so as to restore their vitality. For me, there was no blinding mountaintop moment during my sabbatical, and it was a time to be fallow, to lay low, to reconnect with my spirituality and my vitality. I have some reflections on how Sabbath time can feed one's soul, how the intentions of Sabbath can help. In this long time of pandemic and exhaustion, Sabbath may be part of what helps you get through, helps you to hang in through what seems impossible. The title of this sermon, What I Learned on My Sabbatical, is supposed to be a kind of humorous reference to the supposed essays many of us might have been asked to write in school, what I did on my summer vacation. I don't actually remember writing an essay like that. Maybe I did, or maybe it's just a thing in our culture. Anyway, I thought that today I would talk a little bit about my sabbatical, since you all were kind enough to make it so I could have one. Well, the first thing I learned I had not planned on learning, and it is this. If you have put off any routine but uncomfortable or inconvenient medical screenings, you should really stop procrastinating. And if you can, get those done. If you were without insurance or the means to get those tests, you are not procrastinating. You are being harmed by a medical system that is broken. And I'm sorry for that. But if you have the means to get those tests, get them. I entered my sabbatical really tired. Now, I know we are all really tired. Caregivers, and religious leaders are part of that group, carry a particular kind of leadership that has its own peculiar weight and responsibilities. I wish all our medical professionals and teachers could have sabbaticals. They have earned them 10 times over. Here are some of the questions that were running in a kind of loop in my head and in my heart before the sabbatical. How can I meet people's needs? What is church? How do we do church in these confusing times? What's happening next? How is this pandemic changing my ministry? And how is it changing the nature of church? And then there was all that pandemic safety math about what we need to do. Which mask is best? How long does it last? How do we get folks vaccinated and wearing masks? What is the airflow in the church? How fast does it turn over? How do we keep people safest? What is the right time for everyone to return to in-person worship? What do we need to do to make that happen? What is the plan? Who has the plan? Who should make the plan? There were a lot more questions than that. I don't need to overwhelm you any more than I already have by laying out any more questions. I am sure that many of you have your own question loops running in your head. That kind of question loop is exhausting. A sabbatical is a time to be fallow, to abstain from work, to reconnect with the divine. This is done not so one can come back and be a productive cog in the capitalist machine, but rather so that one can return to the day-to-day world, being able to be more contributive to the work of the divine, because that is what is going to heal our world. Because of COVID and because of my surgery, I could not really plan a traditional sabbatical like I had thought, like maybe going to professional conferences or trainings or things like that. What I did do was to re-engage with my spiritual practice in a big way. My spiritual practice is knitting. When I first started exploring spiritual practices, I, having been raised Catholic, thought that all spiritual practices must contain a good dose of self-sacrifice and discomfort. What I have learned is that's not necessarily true. While that may work for some folks, it definitely does not work for me. In my years exploring a spiritual practice, I have discovered that I need something that is accessible, that involves the use of my body, has a sort of tactile feedback in it, is enjoyable, and is repetitive. Meaning I don't really have to think too hard, and that provides me with time and space to let go of worry and open myself to what it is that the divine is calling me to. Knitting is that thing for me. I find that it slows my heart rate down some. It also pulls my mind from perseverating on whatever the worry of the day is. And ending up with something beautiful that is warm and cozy is also a real bonus. First, let me tell you that there is nothing intrinsically wrong with worrying. In fact, it can be a really good habit. If I am driving in bad weather, I am probably worrying about the other drivers. I may be asking myself questions like, where are the other drivers? Are they keeping a good distance from me? Are they following the driving laws? Are they being safe? Worrying in this way will keep me aware of my surroundings and possibly help me respond in a helpful way if there is an emergency. In that situation, there are specific things that I can do, and the worrying or thinking about them helps me be prepared. Sitting in the morning with my cup of coffee and doom scrolling social media is not, for me, the kind of worrying that does me any good. Reading one or two good articles by a reputable epidemiologist would be much better. Doom scrolling through social media or the news may feel like a kind of preparation, a kind of worrying like I might do while driving, but for me it is not. It is simply an exercise in repetitive, anxiety-provoking behaviors. From our reading this morning, but little by little there crept into my life the dust and grit of the journey. Details, lower level demands, all kinds of cross currents. Nothing momentous, nothing overwhelming, nothing flagrant, just wear and tear. That is a really good description of where I was in the months leading up to my sabbatical. Nothing flagrant, just wear and tear. My sabbatical was a time to step back from all that. And knitting was the practice that allowed me to do that. Vanessa Southern in our meditation this morning started out with these words: so much undone, so much to do, so much to heal in us and the world. That was the weight I was carrying when I started my sabbatical. So much to do, and so overwhelming where to start. With knitting, I have learned that the repeating of small gestures over and over can make a beautiful design. By the quiet and dogged repetition of the smallest movement, one can create a thing of beauty. And intentions matter. If I intentionally repeat a mistake, it can become a part of the design. If I unintentionally repeat a mistake in a random fashion, it's not a design. It's kind of a mistake. I have learned that intentions matter, and how well I am able to hold to the practice of those intentions also matter. I suspect that for some of you, especially those of you who don't knit or who don't have a creative outlet, that those words may seem shallow or trite. If that is what that little voice in your head is saying, then I would respectfully beg to differ with you. I know we are in the midst of a really long, exhausting pandemic. It is hard to keep on keeping on. It is hard to see the end and to know what the end is. But that does not mean that there is not an end. There will be an end to this nightmare. And what we do now has a lot to do with how and where we will be when it ends. I don't know what parts of the system of our society will be gone or permanently altered when this pandemic is over. Maybe phone calls will become passé. Maybe it will be all text and video messages. Or maybe something else that I can't predict. Maybe gathering in person will take on a deeper meaning. Maybe people will decide that they should get dressed up every day after spending 2 years not getting dressed up. I do know that the need for relationship, for community, is still with us and will be with us when this is over. Maybe we as a church will keep all our committee meetings on Zoom and keep them short, but have weekly gatherings that are friendly and well-paced that build relationships. Because the need for community will still be with us when this pandemic is over. What community will look like might be different, but the need for it will still be here. What practice can you do to knit together our future community? Like small knit stitches practiced over and over, I think you can practice small acts of kindness and patience every day. It can be hard to deal with systems that aren't working because too many of us are homesick. And the practice of repeatedly knitting the fabric of relationship with kindness, forbearance, and grace is a powerful, powerful thing. There are folks out there hungering for community, for connection. You can invite them to our community. For the most part, people will not come to us without an invitation. Right now, it might be hard for you to think about extending yourself. There may be more days than not when all you can do is get up and do your job or take care of the kids or the most basic of tasks that day, and at the end of the day, eat cereal for dinner. From our meditation today, let it be enough. It is okay if that is where you are. Because for all those cereal for dinner days, there may be a day when you can muster up the energy and resources to make a lasagna and divide it in half and send half over to your neighbors. Because for all those cereal for dinner days, there may be a day when you are up to writing the email to the mayor or the county executive, letting them know that their response to this virus has been ridiculously weak and wrong-headed. Because for all those cereal for dinner days, there may be a day when you can get out of the house and help to resettle a refugee or help out at a food bank or help out at your local library. And as an aside, I want to let you know that Interfaith Works is in the process of resettling 200 Afghan families. They had been expecting 50. And they are resettling 4 times that much. What a lot of work and what a lot of joy. Sue Wadley has been helping a lot to resettle some of those families. And I know there have been other folks in our congregation working on this also. And I'm not sure I can pull out their names right now. But feel free to reach out to Sue and ask her how you can help Interfaith Works. I know she'd be happy to talk to you about it. From our meditation this morning, the world won't stop spinning on her axis if you don't rise to all the occasions today. When I was on sabbatical, this congregation did not grind to a halt. Sunday services were created and celebrated. A year-end fundraising appeal was held. The multi-platform tech got installed in our sanctuary. Committee and board meetings were held. Bills were paid. People were visited. Joys were celebrated and sorrows were shared. This congregation did not grind to a halt when I was on sabbatical. That was a good learning for me, and I hope for this congregation too. And the world will not grind to a halt if you take a break from worrying about it. If you take a break from worrying about doing all the things. It will not grind to a halt if you are not doing all the things. As I was writing this sermon, I thought in some ways I sound more like a therapist than a theologian. And since I have been trained in both, it's not surprising. But let me give it to you theologically. You are as much a gift to this universe as your child or your grandparent. You are as much a gift to this universe as a nebula or a black hole. You are a gift. You are valuable. Full stop. Our Unitarian Universalist faith, and I use that word faith intentionally, tells us that we are each worthy. We are each part of the interdependent web, and as such, you need as much caretaking as any child. You need as much care as the environment does. You are a divine gift from the universe. Take care of that gift. The world will not grind to a halt while you do so. In fact, it will celebrate with you. I learned on my sabbatical that it is not the work we do that's important, but the relationships we create and how we care for them that is important. It is the relationships that ministry provides me that are important to me, not the tasks, not the emails, not the to-dos. I hope I can hold on to these words from Howard Thurman. Keep fresh before us the moments of our high resolve, that in fair weather or in foul, in good times or in tempests, in the days when the darkness and the foe are nameless or familiar, we may not forget that to which our lives are committed. In a world without end, may this be so. And blessings upon each and every one of you.